Have you heard the phrase, debt is the root of all evils? Never get into debt. Debt is slavery. And that is true to a certain extent, because when you're drowning in debt, your life is over. While you're trying to pay your debts are not waiting for you. They're growing day by day, since no one lends money for free. There is always an interest. Despite all of this, the United States has embraced debt. Total US consumer debt is almost $15 trillion, which brings the average household debt to over $5,300. The US GDP is a little over $21 trillion, which means the entire economy consists out of debt. But I have some good news for you. That isn't always bad. That is unpopular opinion because most of the debt we have is bad debt. You probably have some credit card debts, a car loan, and maybe a student debt, and you're thinking, it will take me decades to pay off all of these debts. How on earth can debt be something good? In order to understand how debt can be something positive, let's take a look at how people with deep pockets still use debt to make even more money. It might sound a bit confusing because why would anyone with a lot of money use debt in the first place? That is supposed to be used by people who do not have money. But that's not how capitalism works. Debt is a powerful tool if you know how to use it. And in this video, you will find out how rich people use debt to make even more money. So, give this video a thumbs up and let's get right into it. Number 1. Most of the trade is based on debt. It might sound a bit controversial because borrowing money to start a business is a horrible idea, and personally, I would never do that. But there are businesses, especially traditional businesses, where using debt is your best option. Let's say you want to sell pens. It's a very common product and there's pretty much always a demand for it. Ideally, you would fly to China, find a factory that produces that kind of pen with good quality and the right price. You would purchase a container of pens, ship them to the US, and distribute them to your clients. But today, that's mostly done online through websites like Alibaba, unless it's a more complicated product where you have to fly to that factory. But here is the catch. You don't really have to pay for the products to have the product first. Let me explain how. In the past 50 years, China has become the factory of the world, producing literally everything. Thousands of factories work non-stop to produce everything that the world needs. And in order to make it easier to sell, most of these factories would gladly loan you their products in return that you would pay them sometime in the future. Of course, they would not lend to strangers, so you will have to build some kind of trust with them first. But that's how business has been running for the past 50 years. Once the client would sell the product in the US or any other part of the world, he would pay the factory and borrow more products. You're basically telling the factory, you know how to produce it, so let me help you sell it. If I can sell it for anything above this price, that's going to be my profit. What makes this strategy great is that you're not tying up your own money in this transaction. That's why selling is one of the greatest skills you can ever master. Number 2. Refinancing. Real estate debt is the best kind of debt because it's filled with loopholes. If you don't have a mortgage, then you're paying extra taxes. Rich people always have multiple mortgages to be able to get all of those deductions. Remember, every dollar that you're supposed to pay in taxes, but instead you save, is an extra dollar earned. So that's another way rich people get richer. But let me give you a more practical way. This is how basically rich people get rich in real estate. Let's say you saved $200,000. That's a lot of money, but if we're going to be honest, that's peanuts. You can't even buy a house. Of course, you can't get a mortgage up to $800,000 since you have to make a 20% down payment, but here is the secret. Let's say you find a property that costs $500,000. It's in a bad condition and needs some or maybe a lot of renovation. You head to a bank and get a mortgage by making a 20% down payment. Let's say you're going to spend around 10% of the total cost of the house to renovate it, or around $50,000. You head to your bank again, but this time to refinance your mortgage. When you got your first mortgage, the value of that property was just $500,000 because it was in such a bad condition that no one wanted to live there. But since you have renovated it, now there are people who want to rent it out. So the market value of that property, let's say, rises to $700,000. Like the first time, let's say you're going to get an 80% mortgage. But 80% out of $700,000 is $560,000. $400,000 out of that money is going to go to your first bank that gave you the first mortgage. And let's deduct another $50,000 that you spent on renovation, and you're going to be left with an extra profit of $110,000. You made $110,000 using debt, and you're left with a property that you can rent out to build equity and generate passive income. On top of that, you're going to avoid paying taxes because you have a mortgage. This is a very common practice among real estate investors. Can you really say after this that that is bad? I will leave